On this Make It Once video, I dissect a Junkyard 240 and pull its heart out. I'm doing something a little bit different with this video. I'm actually voicing over after the fact instead of giving you the audio from the day of. At this junkyard, it was real loud. The audio was pretty poor, and what I was talking about wasn't all that coherent. So I'm up in Oaktown, Oakland, California, in a junkyard, coming to look at this orange 1975 240. And I didn't film a lot that day. Is a part of that town, which is, to put it in one way, took a wrong turn heading into the junkyard, and I drove through a drug deal in the middle of the day. It wasn't super dangerous, but didn't want to stay there any longer than I needed to. Plus, I had to get home for other things. If you notice, this car is pretty trashed inside, had that leopard print cover, but underneath it was just destroyed. It was a bit rusty in places. There was things that were falling off, but overall, it wasn't horrible shape. Who knows why these cars end up in the junkyard? Often in California, they end up in junkyards because these 70s cars just can't pass smog anymore. In 1975 and newer cars, they would have had to meet the emission standards of the Clean Air Act. And this one should have had a cat to help with that, but it looks like it's been cut out. I came for one part in particular, and that was the engine head. So this year, the 1975, had the last of the B20 series engines. It had the B20F. And as you can see, it's just a tangled mess of fuel injection parts. Looking over the whole car, there was still a lot of good parts on this, and a lot of it carried over from the 140, but there wasn't too much that I could use, so I was mainly just interested in the head, and I was going to take a look at the exhaust manifold to see if it was in good shape that I could use it, because it's separate from the intake. And on my 1969 B20 engine, it's all single unit, and it's not to say it's bad, but having separate one gives me some more options for when I go to upgrade it. So looking inside, I kind of just, you get curious about these things while I was thinking about how I was going to get the head out. As you can see, it just completely destroyed. Didn't have very many miles on it, 136,105, I believe. So not a lot by Volvo standards. The car had been picked over quite a bit, and I was content to just leave the transmission, several of the other good parts for the next guy that came along. All right, so plan of attack, probably just get all these hoses out of the way, get that intake off. This is the first time I'd ever actually seen a B20F in person and all these various parts. At this point, I had taken some of the fuel injection tubes out of the way and was getting into the manifold bolts. So I was just trying to pull things away and clear it away, and I actually realized that the exhaust manifold had this rail attached to it, and it's likely an EGR or some sort of emissions control to get rid of the nitric oxide that was the main concern for the emission standards. So I was just digging. This is maybe half an hour in. The bolts were really hard to get at. That thing on the right there is an air pump, I think. So I just kind of was digging and trying to pull things out, and it was a bit slow going as I discovered how all this stuff was put together. So I'm making good progress here. Running out of time though, so I gotta hurry up. I was warned that there'd be a lot of metric bolts and nuts because it's a 75s when they switched over, but the engines actually stayed with Imperial except for a few things, right? The accessories are metric, but the basic engine, head, block, all that kind of stuff is Imperial, all these things. So I had to bring both sets. It's kind of been a struggle. I have to check which size and all that stuff. A lot of the bolts and nuts are inaccessible. The intake manifold was bolted to the shield, so you had to come in from underneath, and it's kind of just all a slow process, but hopefully in the next 15-20 minutes I'll get this off, and it looks like I'm gonna have to get the AC off right here, at least one bolt, and then I should be able to get the head free. Check this out. That looks really clean, really good. I just had to show you guys once I opened it up, but I gotta keep moving here. I'm like 5 minutes past the time I need to go, and I just got it free, so I gotta yank this out and go pay for it and head out. So happy. At this point, you see me rip the engine apart, and now I'm like jumping in the engine bay to just yank on this head. You may be a little bit disappointed that I ruined the engine. I just ripped it all apart and I'm leaving it like this just for one part. But I recognize that. But to be honest, you know, these really late B20s with the fuel injections are really hard to keep going. There's so many parts. It's something that David Bellow is going to take on. There's not too many people that are take it on. So I figure at this point, it's been sitting in the junkyard for a week. Nobody's taken the engine out. I'm taking the best part of it, so I'm making the best of the situation, and I'm going to use the most important part of this whole thing. So I'm okay with what I did here, as you see me just yank and pull and cut. But with that aside, I also wasn't being all that gentle. I was running out of time. I just needed to get it out. I may have bent one of the valve stems, hopefully not, but I'll double check that at some point and I could replace it. But yeah, the important part was that I just got the head out. I was, you know, paid for it and took it home with me. And as you can see, you know, there was still some radiator fluid left in the head, and it dumped into the piston. At the time, I thought it may have been a blown head gasket, but I don't think so. Just double checking it over here. The gasket's still on, but it didn't look like anything was cracked. There's a lot of buildup, but all the passages were fairly clear. There's a little bit of residue and buildup here and there, but I decided that it was in good enough shape to take with me. Looks okay, I think. Lots of carbon deposits. Again, scanning real quick, I gotta go, but I think it's okay. I think it's good. I'm home after my junkyard trip with my big score. It's in the trunk over here. It's after the holiday season. You know, it's been pretty chaotic and busy, so I'm back to being able to have some time to work on things. And you can notice there's a package here and there's more in the trunk. So I typically don't do like the vlog sort of thing with updates, but this case I'm going to show you what's going on. So if you look in my trunk, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff. And if we look inside this box, we'll see a bunch of stuff. And if we look inside the car, we'll see a bunch of stuff. So I'll leave that to your imagination what all this is. Most of you probably know what all that stuff is. This one's gonna be an adventure for sure. For today, wanted to show you kind of a close-up view of what I got from the junkyard. The reason why I wanted a B20F head to replace the B20B head that I have, by this point, this late in the manufacture, their molds, their casts were pretty good. So it's going to be very uniform. It's going to be pretty well made. And the exhaust ports, because of all the changes they were making for the fuel injection and emissions, are going to be a little bit tighter, better flow, and there's more material there. So if I go to port and change the shape a little bit, it's going to be a much better result. I'm not going to be playing with something that wasn't there. The second part is that the intake valves are bigger by a couple of millimeters, so I don't have to improve the size of that to get more flow. The exhaust valves are the same size, so the ratio is actually better between intake and exhaust valves, so I don't have to replace and do a complete valve job there if I don't need to. And then the third one is that the compression ratio on the original B20F I think was 8.5 to 1, and so we're looking for 9.5 to 1. And again, there's material there, so as we're shaving it down to level it out, we can kind of dial in the compression ratio that we want. So I can clean this up, get it to a machine shop, and do a little bit of porting, and I'm going to end up with really good flow, the compression ratio that I want. It's going to be very, cleanly made. I can upgrade. It's going to handle any kind of upgrades. And I should be able to boost the amount of power by quite a bit without doing a massive amount of work. So this is kind of a big score. The only issue that I do need to deal with is that because it was a fuel injection, it has these ports built into the head as opposed into the manifold or the outside like more modern engines. So I will have to plug those up. I think just little plugs should be fine. If I can find somebody that knows how to braze cast iron, maybe I'll have them braze it shut too. But so in general, I'm pretty happy with this. It's the platform for a lot of upgrades. Taking it to the machine shop is going to give me quite a bit more power out of a standard B20 engine. So as we start 2022, I'm really excited to have all these parts. This is going to be a big project, but I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are going to be able to subscribe and follow along as I start to add all these performance upgrades and the manual swap and get this thing on the road and have some fun with it.